In the opening scene, Andromache of Scythia, known as Andy for short, and her team, Booker, Joe, and Nikki, centuries-old warriors, are seen lying on the floor with gunshot wounds all over their bodies. The movie then rewinds to some days earlier, when Andy meets up with Booker, who informs her of a hostage situation in South Sudan. A group of girls has been kidnapped, and James Copley, a former CIA operative, has contacted them to handle the situation. Upon hearing this, Andy immediately reminds Booker that they usually don't work for someone more than once because it's very risky. After a bit of persuasion from Booker, Andy agrees. They both go to the hotel, where they meet with Joe and Nikki. The team sets out for South Sudan on the rescue mission. When they arrive, they successfully take down all the men who pose a threat, but they are unexpectedly ambushed by another group who open fire on them. They all fall to the ground. After some time, they all start recovering. Andy and her team, possessing unexplained regenerative healing abilities, quickly heal and kill all the remaining men. Andy and her team soon discover that Copley set them up and remotely recorded their regeneration. When they get out, Andy tells her team that Copley and his group know who they are and what they are. As such, they need to find Copley and put a stop to him. Meanwhile, a US Marine named Niall Freeman has her throat slit while trying to take down a military target during an operation in Afghanistan. While undergoing treatment, she shares a dream with the other immortals, who immediately realize that the dream signifies the presence of a new immortal, as has been the case in previous years. Niall wakes up to find that she has recovered from the injury without a scratch on her neck, to the surprise of her colleagues and everyone aware of the incident. While Booker, Joe, and Nikki continue their journey to find Copley, Andy sets out to locate Niall. Andy arrives just as the military personnel are about to transfer Niall to Landstuhl, Germany, for further tests. Andy knocks out Niall's colleagues, and just as Niall tries to shoot her, Andy knocks her out as well and then takes her with her. Niall tries to escape twice, but upon realizing that Andy means no harm, she decides to follow her. In another scene, Copley shows a video of the regenerative healing abilities of Andy and her team to Stephen Merrick, a pharmaceutical executive. Merrick instructs Copley to capture Andy and her team and bring them to him. Andy and Niall meet with the rest of the team in a safe house in France. Niall asks them a few questions, trying to understand why it seems like they cannot die. The group reflects on their past and how they all met each other. Andy reveals that they are not completely immortal, as their healing ability can suddenly stop. She mentions that this happened to someone she used to know, Lycan, who eventually died. At night, Niall has a disturbing dream of a woman locked in an Iron Maiden under the sea, fighting for her life. Nikki tells her that the woman's name is Gwyn and that she was the first immortal Andy found. One day, they were accused of witchcraft, and Gwyn and Andy were tied up and hanged by ropes around their necks, but they didn't die. Gwyn is later locked in an Iron Maiden and thrown into the sea. After Andy escaped, the team spent decades searching for her to no avail. While Niall and Andy are out talking, Merrick's armed men invade their hideout, capturing Joe and Nikki and leaving Booker severely injured. Andy and Niall quickly return to the house after hearing gunshots. As Booker begins to heal, Andy, sensing that the attackers are still nearby, goes after them and kills them all. However, Andy, who is wounded in the process, discovers that she is not healing as usual. When Merrick's men bring Joe and Nikki to him, he introduces himself and explains that there is a genetic code inside them that could benefit everyone on Earth. He and his team need it for medical research. Dr. Meta Kozak, Merrick's head of research, takes their samples for investigation while Joe and Nikki are taken to the lab, where they are tied to a bed. Andy, Booker, and Niall set out in search of Joe and Nikki after discovering their location. When they arrive, Niall tells Andy that she cannot go in with them because she doesn't want to become a killer like them. Additionally, she still has time to live and wants to spend it with her family before they grow old and die. After trying in vain to change her mind, Andy hands Niall the gun Booker gave her and tells her to take the car. Andy then joins Booker while Niall drives away. When Niall reaches a security checkpoint signpost, she stops and tries to get rid of the gun Andy gave her, only to discover that it has no bullets. She recalls seeing Booker remove the bullets from the gun before giving it to Andy. Andy and Booker successfully locate Copley. However, while Andy questions him about the whereabouts of Joe and Nikki, Booker shoots her from behind, ties her hands, and holds her down. As Andy struggles and questions his betrayal, Booker explains that if Merrick can discover what keeps them alive, he could also discover what might end it. Soon, Booker discovers that Andy is not healing. Copley is surprised to learn this and tries to help. Just then, Merrick and his men arrive, capture both Andy and Booker, and take them to the lab. Copley tries to convince Merrick to let the team go, explaining that they are not completely immortal, but Merrick refuses. Seeing that Merrick is determined to torture Andy and her team indefinitely in the name of studying them, Copley begins to regret his actions. Niall, suspecting that Andy and the rest of the team might be in danger, decides to return and help them. She arrives at Copley's location and inquires about Andy and the others. Copley expresses regret for his actions, explaining that his wife's death from cancer led him to expose the immortals, believing he was providing the world with a gift that would end suffering. Copley helps Niall get to Merrick's location. He wants to join Niall in saving Andy and the others to make amends for his mistakes, but Niall reminds him that he is mortal and could easily die, unlike her. She assures him that he has already done enough by bringing her to the location. Niall then proceeds to the lab, leaving Copley behind. Niall fights her way through until she reaches the lab. She frees Andy and the team, and they all go after Merrick. The rest of the team protects Andy, ensuring that no bullets hit her while they fight their way through the remaining security personnel. After dealing with Merrick's security personnel, Andy, feeling weak, pauses with Niall right beside her. Soon, Merrick appears unexpectedly, pointing his gun at Andy and threatening to kill her. Niall fires a shot that seems aimed at Andy, confusing Merrick and giving Andy the chance to stab him. Seeing that Merrick still intends to shoot Andy, Niall takes the shot for her while grabbing Merrick and jumping out of the window. They land on a parked car, where Merrick dies and Niall recovers. The four of them get into their car and drive away. Later, the team deliberates on how to handle Booker's betrayal. Once they reach a decision, Andy informs him that the team will be separating from him for 100 years. They then leave him behind. The rest of the team meets with Copley. Andy instructs him to do everything he can to keep them hidden and protected. He is also to help them find jobs that suit them perfectly. 6 months later, in Paris, a drunken Booker arrives at his apartment and is shocked to find Gwyn there. Please like, comment, and subscribe for more videos like this. Thank you for watching. Hope to see you in my next video.